Welcome to the K2 Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Karen Kelly. Every week, I'll be sitting down with a sales executive where they'll share their stories and experiences that produce game-changing results. Let's be honest, sales can be a tough game. I'm sure at some point, we've all delivered a less than stellar demo, been ghosted by a client or two, and sometimes maybe we did more talking than listening. And that's where I can help. The stories and insights our guests share can be applied to your own business, your territory, or with your team, so you're not reinventing the wheel. Our weekly tactics and strategies help you get out of your head and start creating your own path towards game-changing results. Welcome back to the K2 Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Karen Kelly. Now, as small business owners and founders, there are challenges that we face both starting the business and when the business is up and running, but some of the challenges are unique to women. And I had the pleasure of speaking with Aisling Lalor, who is the founder and CEO of Aisling Lalor Dental and Skin. And this is based in Northern Ireland. So great to have some international guests join the podcast. But really, the conversation started amongst, how can we do hard things? How can we step outside of our comfort zone and bet on ourselves and do hard things? And what we're talking about here with Aisling is, she had some trying points in her life that forced her to make decisions to leave, her dental practice that she worked for and go on her own. And just through that journey, some of the lessons, some of the awareness, some of the awakenings she had that allowed her to get to where she is today, which is a very successful clinic, dental and skin clinic, but also how she really says yes to adventure and joy and fun. And she talked about the experience she had with the Marathon des Sables, which I learned is only 22,000 people in the world complete it. And it's you over 6 days, you run a marathon every day in the Moroccan desert. So, I mean, kudos to her. Hats off. That's just inspiration itself. But the point is that when we can step outside of our day to day, and sometimes we're in the weeds and we're stressed out, but we can do something for ourselves that benefits ourselves. The lessons, the insights, the reflection that we gain from that, and we bring it back into our everyday life, we can do the growth, the expansion is off the charts. And so she reminded us to have some fun, bring some joy, say yes to the hard things, but look at what they bring. And so for her, it's extreme adventure, it's marathon running, but it doesn't have to be that for everybody. It's just, what can we do to reset ourselves in the day, to step outside of our comfort zone, to try something new, learn something about ourselves, and teach us something that when we're back in the day to day and we're faced with a difficult situation, a difficult client, we have the experience and the resiliency from doing something hard outside of our life that allows us to tackle this head on. And I think oftentimes we play it safe and we just stay in the grind and the weeds, and we think it's got to be hard all the time, and it doesn't. And so highly encourage you to take a listen to the podcast. It is broken down over 2 series. So I learned a lot, eye-opening for me. I'm definitely going to incorporate some more fun and some more adventure into my life after listening to Aisling. So hope you listen. Let us know if you've changed anything, if you added anything to your life that's brought you some fun, some joy, and an impact or a win in the business as a result of that. So highly recommend it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Okay, so I'm delighted to have Aisling Lalor with me today, who is the recipient of Excellence in Customer Service from the Northern Ireland Cosmetic Medicine Award. So Aisling, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Karen. Thank you very much.
And I have to say, all the way from Northern Ireland. So look at the reach we're getting on this podcast. Delighted to have you with us.
Absolutely. It's
Uh,
incredible.
yeah. So just for some context, we met earlier this year at the Northern Ireland Sales Summit. I was speaking and kind of felt there was a connection. I love seeing women founders, and that's what really prompted me to invite you on the podcast. Is being a woman founder. In, I would say, a male-dominated industry, and just really hearing your story both in the professional and personal, and kind of seeing how those two worlds collide. So, for the listeners, and just to give some context, you're a dentist, which is amazing. So, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about, your desire? Did you always have a desire to get into dentistry? Was someone in your family in that? But also, you married it with facial aesthetics, and so normally when people become a dentist, like that's they've they've achieved mecca. But you said, "Well, I'm going to take that and I'm going to trump it and I'm going to do more." So, talk to us a little bit about, was that ambition or desire along the way? Was it after, or kind of where did all that come from?
Yes, that's there's so much involved in that question, Clarence. This is
It's loaded.
great. We got all night. Um, so yes, I do have some family members who are in the dental field. So I have an uncle who's a maxillofacial surgeon, and did an awful lot of work on cleft lips and things like that. So many more. I sort of made that sound very menial, but it's not. It's massive what he does.
Hmm.
But it was my aunt who's now in Australia, and it was her dental career. So my my mom's parents originally from Belgium, and then they came to Ireland. So like you, my family, my mom, they were bilingual, so they had English, and then they spoke Flemish in the house because my grandmother had no English at the start. But anyway, when she did dentistry and she finished it, she went to Holland because because Flemish and Dutch are very similar, and she worked there for a year. Then she went back to England, worked there for a couple of years, and then she ended up in France for a couple of years working, and then Australia. And I remember thinking, "Ooh, I like that. That's really footloose. I could travel around the world and practice my dentistry." So that was one of the things. And then the other thing is I've always been quite creative and working with my hands. So and sort of being around people. So there were a lot of the things that came together for me to get into dentistry. At one point, I did think about doing architecture. I love architecture. And I remember my mum said, "Architecture? But you're after 60, you're not going to have a job." I was like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way, you know." So, but ended up in dentistry, made some fantastic friends. And as the years went on, I worked in Dublin for a bit, and then I moved up to Northern Ireland. And it was about 13 years ago, I got into the facial aesthetics. So I was always very big into the cosmetic side of dentistry, probably because of my artistic flair, doing composite bonding and having good perspective when you're looking at faces and, perspective, shade, character of teeth. I would pick up on just small little things that maybe other people didn't pick up on. So,
Hmm.
um, and it just came quite naturally, which is great. So when I was doing a cosmetic smile design course, we then talked about lip lip heights. So some people have a high lip line, so when they smile, they show a lot of their teeth, maybe some of their gum. And then you got low lip line where someone smiles and you can hardly see their teeth. So they're the great ones to treat, because if you do make an error, not that you're going to make an error, but you don't see it. Where someone lifts their lip and it's really high, you see everything, any issues, any errors, it's all seen. And some people don't like showing gum because they call it gummy smile. So there was always discussion of, well, how would you treat that? So one option is you get a lot of surgery done, and the other option is you get a little bit of Botox into the lip to help the lip to drop down a bit so that the muscle can't lift it up as much. And I thought, I like the sound of that.
Hmm.
That's much nicer because I don't like surgery as such. And so then I branched out into that and started going to courses. Loved it so much. It's a bit like an iceberg. There's so much. It's so interesting, and it's a really growing field. Before it was, that's just aesthetic and cosmetic, and there's a lot of vanity involved in that one. Actually, there's so much more to it. Building people's confidence. Sometimes it's where someone has facial paralysis on one side, so you give Botox to reduce the overactivity of the other side, and that can be quite transformative for people at a medical level. So I think the message is getting out there. There's a lot more than just vanity, and I love it. The conversations I have with patients are not as nervous getting their facial aesthetics as they are getting dentistry. As you know, so many people are nervous about going to the dentist. So yeah, so I enjoy that. And that's how I
Mhm.
got into the facial aesthetics.
That's a great story, and it's funny because I would always consider dentistry like left brain, like real analytical, academic, but you said your creative side, so it's interesting how you and I guess that's through the cosmetic lens that you're coming at, but I think that's, the fact that you have that and you saw that in people where most people might not, or even that level of detail perhaps influenced you into that direction.
Absolutely, because it's funny if you interesting even. I know we'll talk about this a bit later, but the Marathon des Sables, and it was very funny. My coach said, "Right, what were your times? What were your stats? What were all this?" And I'm like, I just ran like 13 miles and I did it in a certain amount of time. I don't want to know the rest of the stats." And I think that's the creative side was like, I've ticked that box, I've done that, I'm doing all this, I'll do the, I've had to, over the years, I suppose I had to force myself to do the other things and look at more of the science. And the more you do, the more you do enjoy it. And it makes you a better clinician because you understand, more about the treatments you're doing, the nuances and all of that. But yeah, no, I'd still would be, the creative side is still very strong.
Mhm, mhm, and I definitely wanna get to, the Marathon des Sables for sure in a minute because that's unbelievable. But think about what you said. You said, vanity, it's less about the vanity, it's more about, providing a transformation and confidence and think about being a, female founder in sales and selling. What our role is to sell outcomes, right? And sometimes we don't have a tangible product. We're selling a service or an outcome, but you actually you are selling an outcome. You are selling confidence, a belief system, removing, any kind of bias from the stories they're telling them based on how they look. So you're doing it like full on. Talk to us about that and just what that's been like for you to be able to. I would imagine it'd be no, I'm not gonna say easier, but you are physically selling an outcome that they can see.
Yes, because it's really interesting because sometimes you don't always have the images, the before and after images of what they want, but you do have images that, on our social media channels, maybe have folders and photo albums in the practice, or they've come to me by through word of mouth from a friend or a family member. Um, and think they get to know what your style is because everybody does have a style. And I suppose there is a style where I quite like to keep things natural and then I can, there with the creative side of things, I can have someone come to me who has quite crooked teeth. So either I would start doing a little bit of orthodontic work on them, removing their teeth. And then I can talk to them about, and with my knowledge of the facial aesthetics, I can talk to them about how that's going to affect their lip line, you know, um, their smile lines, maybe even their sort of facial structure. To a lesser degree, obviously, that would be more in regards to plastic surgery. Um, and I think when you're quite expressive and talking to them and very genuine and honest, and if they ask questions, and if I do feel that I can't achieve what they're looking for, I will be honest with them. But I will talk everybody through and give them the opportunity to ask questions. And I think there's the outcome, but also you have to trust the clinician who's going to be treating you. So I think if they feel comfortable, that they can, express their concerns, ask questions, that they feel supported, and then they feel that you're going to be accountable for what you're going to do, because I think that's a very important part of it as well. I think that all helps in regards to the whole process, because it's quite a dynamic process from, the initial consultation to, you know, checking their oral health and making sure their gum health is correct. And then obviously, there is body dysmorphia as well. So there's and because of Instagram, social media, you're dealing with all these different issues that are massive. And so you have to have a really good understanding and be empathetic towards the patient to try and draw these issues out before you embark on treatment, because sometimes if someone does have body dysmorphia, it can create a bigger issue because they don't really know what they want.
Mhm.
And you're trying to understand what they want.
Mhm.
Now within dentistry, we've got like I suppose it's like AI coming into dentistry. So we have scanners, and then now I'm looking at a thing at the moment called Smile Try. So literally, you could take a 3D scan of, I could take a 3D scan of your face,
Mhm.
and let's say I did a scan of your teeth, and I can insert the teeth in the 3D scan of your face, and then we can play around and look at
Mhm.
how your smile could be. And I think that's going to really help um, the create that real connection between the ability of the clinician and then the wants of the patient, and then the two things together are moving forward in that you both have a visual of what it's going to look like towards
Mhm.
the end.
Yeah, I think that connection between AI is huge, but I think from what I just heard from you is also the connection with the patient and just building that trust. And so for me, I would imagine, people going in, regardless of what they're facing, there's got to be an element of apprehension and can I trust this person? And even like what happens after the treatment? What if I'm not happy? What if I have questions and all these things? And so I think before you even get into the procedure, it's like I gotta show up and like all the traits you said, like empathetic. They have to trust me. They have to believe in me. And that's before you even talk product. And so a lot of people and business owners don't consider themselves in sales, and I'm kind of bringing the sales lens to this, but like that's everything we have to do before we talk transformation because there is no transformation. If we can't connect with them, if you can't connect with them, put them at ease, and I would even say answer the questions that they don't even know to ask, then they're not going to stick around to get any work done.
No, they're not, and then sometimes it's having a bit of fun. So I think as well, because they're so nervous.
Yeah.
And I think because of my experience now, I pick up on that. And they might even say something to the team outside before they come in. And we have like an internal messaging system, and they might say, look, this individual, this, lady or gentleman, they're really nervous. And that's great because when they come in, you have that idea, you pick it up anyway.
Hmm.
And then it's trying to put them at ease. So something will have a little bit of a joke, or they'll give out to me because the usual what we dentists do is that, we're working on your teeth and then we ask you a question, or I might say
Yes.
a joke. It's like the other day but I didn't mean to, it just came out. And the patient, like they were trying to laugh, but they couldn't because we had to suction everything in, and you can just see their eyes rolling, but they
Yeah.
just enjoy it. So sometimes it is just having that, just a little element of fun in there as well. And I think when they start to relax, then you get more from the interaction as well. So it's not just about the dentistry, and sometimes the conversations you have are great. So and it's always, yes, that does, lend such a big part of sales, isn't it? Communication and people by people. And it's very true. You need that interpersonal connection.
I think it's huge. And you don't really consider dentistry with maybe I don't humor or levity. I mean, my dentist, we have good conversations, but it is correct. Like they'll always ask you the question right when the suction. I'm like, I can't sign language, so I'm not going to answer that, and I'm not going to answer that. So you guys must just do that on purpose.
I think we don't even realize. I think sometimes if there's a bit of silence, you come out with something like, "Oh, sorry."
And then we
Turn the
start
music
joke.
up behind us.
So you've been in your practice 4 years. So there must have been or was there a pivotal point or turning point, or what prompted you to say, like, I want to go on my own? And was there a struggle, or what was that process like from, having the security and the stability to saying, I'm going all in on Ashling?
Yes, I was working in a practice, and I've been in that practice for probably about 10 years. I'm really, really, really busy. And then I had started building up a facial aesthetic clinic within that practice. And then there's just mounting pressure where, and now I realize that this is going to sound bad initially because it's like a pain point, but actually now I realize that has helped make me what I am today. And for the individual who owned the practice, I couldn't work hard enough, I couldn't work fast enough. But the reality was, if I had a cancellation, it was booked within 5 minutes. I wasn't finishing for lunch, I wasn't finishing in the evening time because you were just busy. And um, I think it was always building up the rapport with the patients and doing the work, and it was always very conscientious. And it just came to a point where there was a breaking point for me. And I think even it was transcending into my personal life and causing issues there. And I had two young kids. and maybe not been home. So there was pressure on my ex-husband as well. And I remember there was a point, and uh, I was driving home, and I probably have been looking at sort of thinking about, oh, what am I going to do? Is it going to be facial aesthetics? Is it going to be dentistry? Is it going to be, what is it? And this was going on for a while. And I remember the pressure had really mounted, and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I just cannot do this. And on my way home on that day, and it would have only taken a couple of minutes, a very frightening thought crossed my mind. And thankfully, I snapped out of it, and I just thought, what, what are you doing? And I suppose, yes, it was only a matter of where I had thought about taking my own life, and that gives you an idea of how much pressure I was under. Nobody was happy. I wasn't happy. Things. Um, and I got home, and I just realized at that point, oh gosh, you've been thinking about this. That is just, that's just not to happen. You're not to do that again. Things have got to change. You've got to make a decision here. And it wasn't an easy path, but I started making changes, and I started looking around to see, would I buy a practice? What would be the cost of buying a practice? Where would I set up? And I looked in around Belfast, and at that time I didn't have a USP because there was another amazing dentist who's very similar to me. I would know her very well, and she won a couple of awards at the Cosmetic Medicine Awards, and she has a dental and skin business. And so I looked at where I was working, and I thought, I've been here for 10 years. I've got a really good following. So look, maybe it's an opportunity, and I spotted an opportunity. And out of that was born Ashling Lalor Dental Skin. I did disappear for a year. They ended up, we were doing work on the house and living in an apartment, and I worked my notice in that practice, and then I had trouble trying to get planning permission and then getting builders to finish out the project. Because the practice started off as four walls. There was damp on the floors, all things. We basically ripped it apart and put in 3 surgeries and a waiting room and all the different things. And it was very exciting. But it took time to get that to off the ground. So I worked in a practice down in County Meath in the south of Ireland, and David Murnahan, and he was just inspirational, so charismatic. He restored my faith in potentially working with somebody, and I did contemplate it, because he was always doing things. He really looked after his staff. He worked hard, and he did things probably a bit like what I do outside of work. He was doing things outside of the work that you wouldn't expect that your dentist was going to do. And I just found him very inspirational. And I just realized between the two practices, I realized what I didn't want in my practice and what I did want. And decided to take all of the good and the bad and move forward. And that's where I am now.
Mhm. Well, that's a journey, and up and down, and thank you for sharing that, and the courageousness from those dark thoughts, and knowing that there's one way out here. And I would imagine, being a mom of 2 young girls, that also played in that, I need to get out, not only for me, but for my children.
And I think there's a lot of people out there who are under that sort of that pressure, and I think it's realizing that a lot of the times we are under pressure, but if you can just work your way through one day at a time, and if you've got support, you will get through it. A lot of these things are sent to challenge us, and they are short lived. Mostly they're short lived, and yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and I've just become a lot stronger person in myself now.
Mhm. I just what you said there, one day at a time, and I've read so many books about, even there's a gentleman here, Ed Milet, and he talks about, his dad was an alcoholic, and he said, "I'm not gonna drink just for one more day, and just for one more day," because he couldn't commit. And I know we're gonna talk about marathon running, but I always used to break it down, into either 1 mile at a time or one, because I couldn't imagine the whole 26 or whatever it was. So I just think what you said there is one day at a time, and so for anyone who is struggling, sometimes it's longer lived or medium lived, and yours was short lived, but it's just like, can you can you just get through, like, incrementally hang on or climb out that, that I also would imagine that there's a vision there that, that desire. Well, you tell me, is the desire to get out first, or are these actions, these incremental steps just helping you and then perhaps a vision comes from that?
Brilliant question. Um, the desire was to get out. I knew I had to
Okay.
do something. And I think I was nervous about working for somebody else because I thought, what if that happens
Mhm.
again? And I think that's
Mhm.
when just thought, right, what am I going to do? And I realized, well, I love dentistry and I have got this other skill and I love the facial aesthetics. And so the two things are complementary. And, I'd seen some of my friends, opening up their practices and doing incredibly well. And thought, okay, look, this is an opportunity. And I think the desire to get out and then obviously, and thankfully, sometimes I think a little bit too big. But anyhow, because I've got that ability.
Nothing
No,
wrong
well,
with
that's
that.
true. Maybe that's a creative side, and then have all this big vision, but then you got to sort of try and sort of pull it back into reality. But sometimes by dreaming, that was always my escapism as well. So I dream of these different things, and I thought, okay,
Yes.
then I started writing things down. Okay, well, what would you do if you had that? And that would be fantastic to explore. And it wasn't easy. I know I'm saying this and I'm smiling, but oh my goodness, there were really tough times, but I'm delighted that I did do that. And I know it was hard on the family. It was hard on you know other people within my life. But I think now to be where I am and to look back, and I think that's why I will get involved with charities, or I will support my team, or I will. There are lots. It's not always easy because there are different things, but you'll always try and listen and have a different perspective. And even
Mhm.
patients coming in and talking to me, they always have a different perspective. Where you're always every day, and I think that's what I've realized is that every day is a learning day, and I think isn't that exciting
Mhm.
to be? And I'm so delighted that I'm able to do that, um, and explore the life that we have the opportunity to explore.
It sounds like those experiences that you had have taught you that. So you almost needed that contrast of what, you were running away from something, but you then ran towards something else. And it sounds like that doctor that you worked with, who kind of helped you see that vision. I would almost say, like, were these were these teachers always there, but we didn't see them because we were so head down, or did they just appear once you kind of got clarity and kind of picked yourself back up?
I think yes, when you're in the weeds and you're working hard, you don't see because you're just surviving. And I think then maybe when there is that situation, and then
Yeah.
you think, right, okay, I've got to make a difference here. And then as you're talking to people, counseling, you realize, actually I need to look out for it. It's a need to. And I think, um, when you then see, I think you look to something positive, and you look to where there's maybe a little bit of fun, because you gravitate towards that because you want joy, you want positivity, you want all of that in your
Mhm.
life because you want to run away from the other things. And I think then become a lot more receptive to it. And you're like, oh God, that's great. I would love a bit more of that. And it is a slow thing, because sometimes you can be quite,
Mhm.
you can put barriers around yourself, and then you can be in a situation, and when you feel you're in a situation where there's a lot of positivity, your barriers do begin to naturally drop. And I think when your barriers start to drop, you start to look around and learn and experience, and then if you then apply that to
Mhm.
your own life, I think that's just pretty empowering.
Mhm. I think that's a great story, and I would say if most people can do that, and sometimes what I've seen is they hang on into that isolation too long. And so what you've just said there is when you can, drop the barriers because you're craving positivity, but you're also surrounded with people, and there's a bit of that osmosis there that you're like, I'm picking up on this, whether I want to or not. And I feel that, like, that takes you because at a certain point you're like, I'm done being sad and depressed and whatever. And so this is the importance of community, and just kind of like acting before you're ready, and just saying, like, if you wait for your brain to say, "Oh, I'm going to, join a community now," like, it's never going to happen. But pushing yourself first, and then feeling the group lift you.
Oh, absolutely. It's I think if we wait and procrastinate, it's not going to happen. It's like,
Yeah.
I think you've got to be like, out of momentum comes opportunity. So I
Mm,
think when you're out and you're doing things, and obviously, we all have, sometimes it's like imposter syndrome, or you're challenged, or you think, well, why have they said that to me? And I think you nearly need to just try and just keep pushing yourself forward, which is not always easy. I think the more you do it, the
mhm,
easier it gets, because you realize that the lessons you learn are so important, and have such a positive effect on your own life and moving forwards, that it becomes easier.
mhm. Yeah, I live in the discomfort.
Yeah.
I do, and I remember that first time just going, like, freaking out at things because I was afraid and it was the first time, and now I always say, I say yes and I figure it out later,
Yes. Yeah.
and I think that's that entrepreneurial spirit, especially when you're starting. You're like, "I'll say yes to anything, and can you do it?" And then people will say, "Have you done this before?" And you're like, "No, but it's been done. I haven't done it, so it's possible."
I think it was a post that Stephen Bartlett had, and I thought was very good. You know, sometimes doing something that you know nothing about is where you get your biggest growth.
Yeah.
And I just thought, actually, that is so true. But
Mhm.
a lot of us would, the majority of people would fear doing that. Think, oh, I don't know, what are they going to think if I fail, if that doesn't work? And I think now I would still think about that, but then I go, do you know what? I'd rather fail rather than not experience something.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and look, who knows what's going to come out of that? Like us
Yeah.
having our conversation today.
Yeah, we had a few ahas. So you mentioned, that it was challenging to get the business up and running. I know you had the physical challenges of the site and everything. Do you feel that there was unique challenges placed on you being a female?
Yes, because in Ireland we have more female dentists than I think you were saying earlier on, just in regards to Canada. So there are more females now. But I think when you're opening up, or you're starting as a female, the most of the advisors were male that I was dealing with. The builders were male. It was my landlord, all these different things, and I'm probably thinking, who does she think she is? If I was challenging them on something, so I had to actually be sometimes quite specific. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then, even with the building project, I would then come back and say, well, no, the reason I want that in a certain way is because this is how that's going to ergonomically work. And this is how I planned. This is what we're going to be doing here. And then they would go, oh, we didn't think about that. So you had to really be, you had to explain yourself more, but you had to be quite specific. And even with the financial
Mhm.
advisors, I was very, very lucky. They were all very patient, and because I sort of knew about dentistry, I didn't know anything. No, I knew what I liked from experience in working in businesses, what I liked and what I didn't like. But essentially, I didn't really know anything about setting up a business, so it was completely new. I was totally wet behind the ears, made like loads of probably catastrophic mistakes. So yeah, well, you had to really believe in yourself, and not to be afraid to be challenged, nor to challenge. Um, and I think as a female, that's
Mhm.
sometimes you need to speak a little bit louder, and you sort of drive your opinion forward, because sometimes you go, oh no, that's not going to work. This is, I would do it this way. Or you say, actually, no, this is what I want. So yeah, you have to be very, I don't know if you've experienced that. Have you experienced that, Karen?
I have to an extent, but just on that point there, when you said, I would do it this way. Do you think they would say the same thing to a man? And I'm not trying to man bash here because there's things, but I just think when I've done renovations in the past, they treated me like it was like my parents' house that I was renovating. I'm like, "No, no, this is my home and this is my money that I'm paying you with." And it was just, I think they test first to see, okay, can I gouge her? Like, what is she like? And that they quickly found out that you couldn't. But I don't know. I just think even in the automotive industry, they start using language that they think, oh, they don't know anything. I'm going to say you need this, and I'm going to make a few dollars. And so I don't want to paint everyone, and this isn't a male bashing. It's just as a female founder, there are things, and you've just shared, we have to be very specific with our communication, but sometimes it feels like we have to justify the fact that we're even doing this, that we are building a business, that we do have a vision. And so I feel like that justification, and maybe for some of us, it's in our head. But I don't think we need to explain why we're doing it. This is our choice. I brought you in to, deliver on upon a service. I don't need to explain to you why I'm doing it.
And you do come across that. And as you say, if it is a male dominated environment, as you're saying, the automotive, I think because maybe as you were saying in sales, there weren't many other females at the time when you were working in sales, so you do have to defend yourself because they're maybe not used to having a female,
Hmm.
or else as someone who might be quite vocal about what they want. And I think things times are changing now, and I think the female voice is getting stronger, but that's because maybe we are getting stronger in ourselves, and not feeling that, oh, I can't say anything. It's like, no, actually, I'm going to say something.
Hmm.
So I think that's changing because there's a movement out there, and that's not meant to be, as
Hmm.
you say, it's not male bashing. I think there's
Yeah.
you know there's an understanding and a
Hmm.
perception, and then there's our ability to say, look, I have a voice, and this is what I want, and just being more communicative about it.
And I agree. I think there's a desire from both sides. I do think, men want to support us and they want to be our allies for the most part. And I think women are like, enough's enough, like, let's push forward. And even I have a little girl, and I'm always, talking about confidence, leaning in, and finding your voice. Because for me, being the only woman in the room very often in my career, I found it empowering. And just like what we chatted about before we hit record, like if I was doubted, I that even motivated me more to speak up, to work harder. So while they thought maybe they're trying to tear me down, I'm like, you're actually doing the opposite.
And I think years ago they used to always think that you had to wear your heels and go in and present yourself in a certain way. Where now, you could go in with just your suits and flat shoes and not worry about it, or go in with
Yeah.
something more relaxed because you have something very valid to say or to offer. And it's quite interesting you say with the girls, like even I've got two girls, and I think I just want them to be very independent, and not to have the fear to go after what they want, um,
Hmm.
without being, too aggressive about it. But at the same time, it's just a case of like, just be definite, be confident, go for it, and just don't, if you want something, don't let anyone else hold you back. If they do try and hold you back, use that as you say, like fire in your belly to motivate you.
And one thing I see with my female coaching clients is, unfortunately, we hold ourselves back. A lot of times it's not our ability, it's our mindset, and it's the stories we're telling ourselves of we can't, and the scarcity mindset, that it's not others holding us back, it's us.
It's like mindset is everything. It was like a couple of weeks ago I did a pitch, and it was a 3-minute pitch, and I had never done anything like that before. And getting up on stage, and my legs were shaking, and I totally forgot the mic. But whatever I did on that day, I obviously just projected my voice that everybody could hear me. I was like, oh my goodness. And, afterwards, you're still shaking a little bit, thinking, did I really do that? And you say we are capable. I think what we need to do is to say yes more, and try different
Hmm.
things and just go for it, and not fear. So, as you say, we all do. We hold ourselves back. We procrastinate. We think, "Oh, what are those other people going to think?" You know, a majority of the time, people aren't really people are thinking more about themselves rather than anyone else. And I
Yes.
think if you think about that, then you're
Mhm.
thinking, "Oh, well, they're probably thinking about themselves. So I'm just going to get up here on stage and I'm going to talk to someone, and I'm just going to see what everybody thinks. And if someone listens, brilliant. And if nobody listens, I'm not going to worry about it."
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I don't think people are worried about us. It's our perception that they are. Listen, I just want to say you've opened my eyes. I'm going to kind of get my creative juices back again cuz I've I was there and then life took over and it's no excuse. So you've been inspirational to me. I know the listeners have taken a lot from just turning things around, taking control of situations where you had a dark sad time. You took control. You made a choice. Like you had a decision at that point and you chose you, and then all the steps you took along the way to rebuild. But I also think there were so many teachers placed and guides in your path, that from the folks in the tent, the dentist that you trained beside that was doing things that gave you these ideas, like they were placed in your path for a reason. There was no coincidence. Say, this is what I'm taking from it that allowed you to get to where you are today. Because I think when sometimes you look backwards, you're like, everything happened for a reason, and that was all meant to happen to allow me to be where I am today.
Absolutely. It's been, so there you go. It's like the journey of a life and just being open to it. And
Yeah.
thank you so much. It's been fabulous chatting to you. As I say, you inspire me with all the podcasts and the sales, and then from our initial meeting, I've learned so much and using that in my business as well. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Well, listen, Ashling, if people want to get in touch with you, connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So you can do it via LinkedIn under Ashling Lawler.
Okay.
And then I'm
Hmm.
also on Instagram and Facebook. So through the business is Ashling Lawler Dental Skin. Now that might change as a little bit of another chapter that's about to begin. Unfortunately, I
Oh,
was hoping I would be able to tell you a little bit more about that. But yes, there's another chapter unfolding, and another little while, another challenge. So yes, keep your eyes open. Um,
okay.
but yes, so Ashley Noller Dental Skin on Instagram and the same on Facebook. And then we do have a YouTube channel, which I laugh about,
Oh,
actually,
fun. Okay.
and our website. So yeah, loads of points of contact.
So I want to thank you, Ashling, for sharing your story, both leading up to becoming a dentist and some of the struggles, leaving your practice, some of the difficult decisions you had to make, but ultimately that led you to where you are today, being a successful owner of a dental and aesthetic company. And really, what the role of knowing yourself, trusting yourself, having a community, getting out of your head, all the things that we struggle as not only as women, but as humans, that you were able to acknowledge them and overcome them. And so thank you for sharing that. And I'm looking forward to the next series. So tune in next week where Ashley's going to take it up a notch and she's going to share how she also adds an element of fun and adventure to really, scare her a little bit. It's almost like say yes now and figure it out later. And she's committed, but what she shares is, when she puts herself in these situations, the learning, the expansion, the growth is off the charts. But she can then bring that into her everyday life, and the benefits are many. So thank you for watching, everybody. Hope you've been inspired so far. Encourage you to tune back in next week where she continues her journey and we talk about how adventure marathon running has also played a role in the success of her business and what it does just to have that balance and that contrast from a busy life to adding the element of fun and levity in through adventure. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next time.